Oxford is a culturally rich city with a vibrant downtown that revolves around the Oxford Courthouse Square Historic District, and this charming locale was home to Nobel Prize-winning author William Faulkner and esteemed 19th century statesman L.Q.C. Lamar, as well as the University of Mississippi, as we call Ole Miss. Remember that football radio show we did on college football between Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, Nancy, and Florida? It was Florida years and years ago. We didn't know what we were doing, but the coaches sure gave each other a run for the money. And
they did.
I remember Ole Miss really being like at the top there, and I think won whatever was going on our show between them all. But anyway, it is an established art mecca and also has a burgeoning culinary scene, and we're excited to have travel and lifestyle writer Deborah Stone back on Big Blend Radio today to talk about her adventures in historic Oxford, Mississippi. Her article about the experience will be featured in the April-May issue of Parks and Travel magazine, or you can go right now to nationalparktraveling.com and see her article and photos there. Just type in Oxford and you'll find it. Or just go to the website, visitoxford.ms.com, and you'll be able to see everything at that Visitor Bureau website and see photos and everything there, too. And for more about Debbie, who is a regular contributor here on Big Blend Radio and in our magazines, go to blendradioandtv.com, and you'll see her expert profile there. So, Debbie, how are you?
Well, hello there, ladies. I am doing fine. I'm all set and excited to talk about Oxford, Mississippi. And as you say, it is very historical and has a great art scene, also a good culinary scene, and it's a southern jewel that a lot of people maybe don't know much about, other than the fact that it is home to, as you said, Ole Miss, very historical university, but it's really a great place to go if you want to combine a trip to Memphis, for example, which is only about 85 miles from Oxford. So if you flew into Memphis and rented a car, you could, do Memphis and do Oxford, and actually then Oxford is just a couple hours from Birmingham. So you could do a whole, big kind of southern route there and get a lot of history, get a lot of music, get a lot of art, and a lot of good food.
That sounds good. I want to give everyone that website again because I made a typo. This is what happens when you're, blonde like me. No, it's visitoxfordms.com. There's no dot in there. As I was saying that, I was like, that doesn't look right. So visit oxfordms.com. Go check it out. And it looks beautiful, and it's something I know Nancy and I are going up to Kentucky this year. And we were looking at, going up Natchez Trace from Natchez, Mississippi, all the way up to Nashville. And it doesn't look far. Like we can just do a little detour over to there and then a detour over to Vicksburg as well. So, it's not a huge, huge state, but it is a very culturally significant state. And Oxford seems to me like one of the key places to visit for that kind of thing, especially literature.
Yes. Yeah, big-time literary town, I think, with a very impressive literary heritage.
Yeah, I was like, of course, William Faulkner, but so John Grisham, was he there too?
Yeah, he attended law school at Ole Miss, and, he stayed on. He had property in town. He had a house there. He wrote his books and lived there for a number of years. And as you come into town, as I said in my story when I was writing it, it was like, I'm driving into town, and all of a sudden you just see this, big, beautiful, stately white building right in front of you. And it is the courthouse, which anchors the historic square. But it really looks like something right out of a Grisham legal thriller that he is so known for, and that he usually takes the stories take place in the South. But you can see perhaps where that inspiration came from, because I was like, oh my gosh, this looks exactly like out of one of his books. It is a very impressive building, and it sets the kind of scene or the tone for the town, I think.
Yeah, because John Grisham, man, I've read so many of his books, and then you think about the movies that came off of there, like Pelican Brief, it's just like, wow, and it's amazing how these hubs are created, how artists and writers kind of gather in a spot. What do you think, what's in the water?
I think it's really interesting because, there's a wonderful independent bookstore there called Square Books, which we can talk about later. But it has this fabulous Faulkner section, but then it has this huge section that's devoted to, Mississippi writers like Richard Ford and Willie Morris, Eudora Welty, Donna Tartt, Jesmond Ward, blah, blah, blah. I mean, so many different Mississippi writers that I asked the manager there, and I said, what is it? Why is this such a culturally, literary rich area? And she said, because storytelling is such a rich tradition in the South and, very much so in Mississippi. And it's a very valued, hallowed tradition that, seems to continue through the generations. And I think also people just there's a lot to write about down there. It's the southern scene, the South, the culture, the history. It's just, to me, it kind of lends itself to that.
The South is really intriguing.
Oh man, I love.
From the food into the swamps and all the history, it just is. It is something like there's. No matter where you look, there's something to see.
Mm-hmm. And
absolutely,
it looks. I know you were there in the wintertime, but isn't there like a forest nearby too? So there's like a natural scenery kind of haven out there.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, there's nice open green spaces and parks and woods, and in fact Faulkner's estate, which is called Rowan Oak, is open to the public to tour, but it's in this beautiful woods that they call Bailey Woods. The house used to be called the Bailey House, but he changed it to name it after a tree called the rowan tree because it meant a symbol of peace, of security, and he derived a lot of inspiration from this place that he was so prolific in terms of and productive in terms of writing. But it's in this beautiful, lovely wooded area, and there are pockets of that you can find within the town.
Nice.
And being able to go to to the Rowan house, like his Rowan Oak, and actually go to his home is pretty interesting because you start to get a little bit of a clue into his creative mind, his creativity. And bourbon was part of it, but not at the same time, apparently.
Sounds good to me.
He didn't multitask, apparently, with his bourbon.
No, I think the statement was something about, I can't do two things at one time, and when I'm drinking, the only thing I can do is be drunk, so to speak. But the house is fascinating. It has a lot of his memorabilia, left with the furnishings that he had. The house actually went into the hands of his daughter, Jill, upon Faulkner's death and his wife's death, and the house was then donated to the University of Mississippi, and making it available. She wanted it available to the public so that people could see where this Nobel Prize laureate, this Pulitzer Prize, master lived and worked. And so you can walk through and tour on a self-guided tour and look into the various rooms, see where he wrote. One of the more fascinating rooms is his actual office or writing room, which he built in the back of the house. And on the walls is this plot outline for a Fable, the book that I believe was the Pulitzer Prize or winning novel. And it's written on the wall in his hands in graphite and red grease pencil. And it's fascinating that he wrote on the wall. But then you go into the kitchen area and the pantry, and you see the telephone, and you see all these phone numbers that have been handwritten on the wall. That was his directory. So obviously writing on the wall was a part of his thing.
I think that's funny. When you think about it, can you just imagine if everybody just wrote phone numbers on the wall?
Yeah. Well, maybe it has to do with the bourbon. No, I'm kidding. But I think. But you said he also
cool.
One of his rooms, didn't he put the plot of his book on there?
That was the writing room, the office.
The writing room.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was crazy.
I love that. I mean, there's the phone numbers, but the writing of that, to be able to think out loud, it must have been like I don't know. I wish I was there when he did that.
It's easier than paper when you really think about it. Because remember when we made the chart of the world, and I had to get all this paper, and we covered all those walls, the walls in this one house with this newspaper, white newspaper before it's printed on. And because I was going to try and write a historic novel about Kenya, and it was too much. I never wrote it. I just
Well, this is pre-computer and Google, okay?
Yeah.
This is way back when.
And it just was so much easier to see it up on the wall. So I totally get why you did it.
Yeah.
You know what? And the thing is that I was asking the man there that is so knowledgeable there, and he was saying that the reason it was written on the wall was basically it was like a storyboard, and he used that kind of method when he lived in Hollywood and was a screenwriter for a while, and so he used that kind of storyboard technique, and then he put it to use in his room.
See? That makes total sense to me.
I know. I like that. So, I mean, you go through, and then I didn't know his mom was an artist, and his wife.
She and his wife Estelle were artists, and there were paintings by them. What I found was interesting is when I was looking and seeing the name, her name and the family's name is Faulkner, Falkner, and Faulkner, William, added that U to his name in 1918 because he wanted a nom de plume. He wanted a different name. And so, you'll see everything under William Faulkner with the U in it, but anything else that is related to his family, when it talks about his, what his mother, father, whatever, it's all without the U, which I found as a kind of an interesting bit of trivia,
It's all about the accent.
Yeah.
You put a U in it, you get to be kind of British.
Yeah, that's it.
Faulkner.
Man.
Otherwise, you're American and you're just Faulkner.
Yeah, he just wants to be different. And I wonder if he walked around like la-di-da. And the whole place seems so beautiful with gardens.
He had a pipe.
Yeah, that's
why
he did.
Yeah,
he did. What? He was a man of the outdoors, though. He loved nature. He also was a big writer, and he loved tromping around in the woods. He had a great appreciation and respect for nature and the outdoors. So he was a fairly in that respect kind of grounded guy, and he did enjoy his libations, which they, show some of the memorabilia, such as a bottle of Jack Daniels of his, and his pipe, like you said. So, he did have those, certain vices in his life, which we all do, don't we?
And probably had those tweed jackets with the leather elbow patches.
Oh my gosh. I like his look though, because he does feel very regal but naughty. I think he's a naughty man.
Hello.
No, like humorous. You know what I mean? Where he would I think he would be fun, to hang out with and have a cocktail with. I would like to have happy hour with him. I mean, wouldn't you?
Sure.
He reminds me of he reminds me of some actor, and I'm trying to figure out the name of who he is. There's an actor that he just really reminds me of, and I can't. It's Gerald McCraney. I just looked him up. That's who he reminds me of.
I saw him the other night.
Yeah, he looks like him.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh?
Yeah, it was like I kept looking at the statue, the photos you have of the statue, and I'm like,
right,
who is that? And then he looks like another friend of ours too. So there's a bunch of them walking around looking like. But anyway,
must be the Jack Daniels.
And but there you go. But this is so fascinating.
He's what is interesting about him is that he, I think somebody told him early on, write about what you know and write about kind of where you live. And so, he discovered that his own little place there, that area and his town and his county was very rich with subject matter, and he gave them fictitious names and used them in several books as the settings or the scenes, along with supposedly some very colorful characters that actually were modeled after actual real life Oxford residents at the time.
How funny. Like he'd write a book and then people in the town be like, "Oh, that's you." No, it isn't. It's you.
Just go and watch them. I've always wanted to do something like that, especially when you live in smaller towns. The characters. I mean, that's how Northern Exposure is like one of my favorite things, is because it was like everybody,
Didn't you feel like you knew all those from when we lived in Julian?
Yeah, in the mountain towns. Yeah, now great. You had to tell the town name. I remember once, you know Linda Kassam, the president of the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association. She came on a trip with us to our old mountain community that we lived in. Now it's 3,500 people in the actual town and then surrounding mountains. And so going back to an area that you lived in and you catch up, everyone that you see, all they're doing is catching up on gossip. And we're sitting at breakfast and we're like, well, you know this person that you met over here. Well, la, la, la. See, this is really good to air on TV. I mean, on radio here, you know, blah, blah, blah. And by the time we were done, she's like, when are you guys starting a book series on this? Because that's exactly it, all the characters, you know. But I mean, Faulkner is so huge internationally as well. A lot of people go to the cemetery? I know you went there, St. Peter's Cemetery, to see his grave there.
Yeah, I think that if you're a Faulkner fan or even just a literary aficionado, that you're going to go to St. Peter's Cemetery, which has the graves of William and his wife, Estelle, along with the family plot. And you'll notice on the graves that people do bring these little bottles, you know, almost like the airplane-sized bottles of bourbon or whatever. And they actually pour it near the grave and then leave the bottle. And there's also people who leave pens and pencils for the ode to literary. And then there's pennies on there, and that's I don't know exactly why, but I'm just thinking maybe it's a penny for your thoughts kind of thing. But yeah, people leave little bits of things and in his memory to kind of mark and denote that they've been there, you know. And so I thought that was really interesting. And my guide had brought a little bottle of you know, like an airplane bottle of bourbon or whiskey, whatever it was. And so he said, yeah, so you pour it near the grave. And I was like, okay, here you go, William.
And all the grass starts to wilt, you know. Yeah. No, I'm kidding, but here's the thing with that and the pennies. I have to go back to this because all of your, you know, recent historic destinations that you've been to, Miss Fire Monkey, have you know, these stories of being, you know, possibly haunted. And one of the signs of a ghost or a spirit that is connecting with you is leaving a penny. So what if it's Faulkner leaving pennies for the bourbon?
Yeah, he's paying for the bourbon.
You know?
I love that.
Yeah, so that's you know, the thing where I'm thinking it is, you know. The other thing is, so you can go there, but you mentioned this bookstore, and yes. I get excited when I hear about local bookstores. This is Square Books, because we're losing them. They're becoming these national treasures, you know, when you can find a really good bookstore. So it seems fitting that there's one there.
Yes, and it's, you know, very beloved, very well known, right across from the courthouse. And, you know, it's just one of those wonderful places that you can browse for hours. They even have a little cafe upstairs, get yourself a cup of coffee, go out on this beautiful deck that they have up on the top, on the upstairs area, look out at the square. There's comfy chairs to sit. And, you know, and then, you know, the people in there are very knowledgeable about everything that's literary, books, and specifically about Faulkner, and also anything in regards to Mississippi authors. So I found it a delightful place to spend time, and I could have spent a lot more time in there because bookstores are really, especially those independent bookstores, are really some of my favorite haunts.
Me too.
They're interesting.
I know, like there's that one in Portland, Oregon, Powell's.
Yes.
That's dangerous.
That's a dangerous
place for us to go to. But now, okay, the other thing is these buildings, and when I knew you were going to Oxford, I'm like, I know she's going to dig into the architecture in that town because, I mean, does it feel like a town or a city? Because, I mean, here we have a university and City Hall. It feels like a town. That's cool. How many people do you think live there? Do you
actually,
get a feel of?
It's very interesting. Yeah, there's about 20,000 in Oxford, but what's really interesting is there's about 20,000 students. So you've got, you know, and students are there. You've got to combine 40,000 together, but the town itself is about 20,000 people there, and you know, they really are very history is very important to them, and so they have really, saved and preserved and put buildings listed on the National Register of Historic Places. You can walk around. You can take a walking tour, a self-guided walking tour with a map and information from the visitor center, and you can, see that the buildings have these plaques, and they will let you know, what the date is, what it is, and to me it was fascinating to walk around and look at these masterpieces. There's Gothic revival, Victorian Gothic and Romanesque revival, and all different kinds of architecture. And what is very interesting, though, is that these a lot of the buildings, in fact, all of them but one, I think, were destroyed by Union troops in 1864 during the Civil War. So even the courthouse is, the courthouse has replaced the original structure, because it was definitely destroyed in the war as well. So these are later structures in town, kind of the latter part of the 1800s after the war, when things were then reconstructed. So, but it's very interesting. I think the name, immediately you think of Oxford, England. Yeah. And you think of that hallowed university there. And that was really the idea behind, kind of the powers that be, or the people in Oxford. They wanted the name to be Oxford because they wanted to attract a state university, which in fact they successfully did. And so there is a little bit of that British influence in the fact that there's this red London-style telephone booth sitting outside of City Hall. And then there's these red double-decker buses that the city bought. Which I think is very cool, and they use it for special events, and you can get them for private events and whatever. But you see these little, these red double-decker buses riding around, and you're thinking, where am I?
Yeah, that's funny.
Wow, I love that. There's one phone booth that we saw in Visalia, California, up in the Sequoia region, and you're walking in this historic downtown of Visalia, and the architecture is weird because they kept adding on to buildings, and so there'll be like a tiny building, like a sliver in between two buildings, and they're all of different, they're all different, and it's really interesting. And like a road will come in, so one will be higher than it's bizarre, but it's a really cool walk downtown, and they still have the rings where people used to ride their horses in town, where you could hitch the horses, which is cool.
Nice.
But then you're walking through this, and you're getting all parts of history, and you go around the corner, and there's a phone booth, a British phone booth, and you're like, what? Number one, when do we see phone booths anymore anyway? It's like a whole new thing.
Right.
I don't even know if they work like phone booths, if they keep them connected.
I believe the idea of a phone booth was so you'd have privacy while you talk, which seems to have also gone out the window.
Yeah, right? That's exactly it. But I love that you have that British vibe in there, But a lot of these buildings were pretty interesting, and some of the churches to me are, I always think churches and cathedrals are so cool to look at. And the one you said was the Burns Belfry was actually organized by former slaves, right?
Right. It's called Burns Belfry, and it was built in 1910 and for the congregation of the Burns United Methodist Church, which originally was organized by former slaves back in 1869. And so later, many, many years later, the congregation sold the building and it went into office space. But then John Grisham purchased it, and he had it for a while. And then he later donated it to the Heritage Foundation there, the Oxford Lafayette County Heritage Foundation, which then, made it into kind of a multicultural center where they have sometimes exhibits and different things. When I was there, they were doing some exhibits for the Film Fest and whatnot. But it's I love how when they repurpose old buildings as well, it's just to me really wonderful that they want to preserve that history. I love when towns are very committed to that.
And then you had, is it Amadell House? Amadell?
Yes.
Ooh,
Amadell House. Yeah, there's a couple. There's like 3 homes that are on National Historic Landmark status in town. Privately owned. As I said, you can do your drooling from the street side, but it is this gorgeous, gorgeous Italianate mansion that was started back in 1859, and then construction stopped because of the war, and then it later resumed. Supposedly it has a secret room in which the Confederate soldiers were hidden.
Cool.
It also has closets and kitchen that aren't separate from the rest of the house, which is very unusual at the time because most of the time you'd find things, outbuildings, particularly kitchens, not in the main house. So it is a really a treasure and a beautiful building that gets a lot of people stopping in the middle of the street as they're driving. They're like, whoa, wow. I got to get a picture of this,
How cool, man.
Yeah, that's neat. I like it when they hide people in their house.
Yeah, we were just talking about the priest hole in England, how they had hidden the priests in these big, mansions. And then when we were in central Louisiana, in Alexandria, we were in this old plantation, and this wasn't open. It was a bed and breakfast at the time. Now it's closed to the public, but again, haunted. Anyhow, but downstairs, apparently during the Civil War, the Yankees came in and took over, but there were people underneath. They kept some of the Confederates underneath in the bottom of the house, including a mule. And so they tore up the stonework and put charcoal down, and the mule would pee in the corner in the charcoal. And the general was sleeping down there, and they worked together, and then.
But it was Sherman.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it comes to Sherman.
This is an absolutely crazy history, and when you go down there, you get the heebie-jeebies. You really do.
You're like,
Yeah, but
it's not the mule.
They started playing. I don't want to say cricket, but they did start playing like baseball or cricket between both sides out on the Red River.
Wow.
It was like this crazy history of here's, everybody's fighting, but over at this plantation, everybody started getting along and just, how they managed it.
Interesting.
There's I can't remember the whole thing. I wish I could, but it is super, super cool. But speaking of that, the Lamar House, that's a museum now.
Right, it's the LQC Lamar House Museum. I didn't really know much about him. The only name identification for me that I associated was very interesting because when I was in Yellowstone Park last summer, Lamar Valley. And I put the two and two together, and I was like, whoa, is this the same Lamar? And yes, it is, because he did serve as the Secretary of the Interior, and he was quite pro parks and things like that, did a lot for the parks. And so I thought, oh, my gosh, so that's where it comes from. But he's a very interesting man because he is Mississippi's most noted, most famous 19th century statesman. He is one of two people, and I'm not sure who the other person is, who served not only in both houses of Congress, served as the Secretary of the Interior, and then served as a Supreme Court justice. So it was the trifecta for him. And I think only one other person in history has done that. But he is Mississippi's only Supreme Court justice. He was this pre-war congressman. He became a secessionist, secessionist who became, who was, on the side of the Confederacy. And then after the war, he became a congressman again, with very determined to reconcile the North and South, did a lot in that respect. So it's very interesting to see the transition of this man. He is also one of 8 politicians who was featured in JFK's book Profiles in Courage because, like some of the others, they defied the opinions of their party. They went against opposition to do what they felt was right. So, a courageous, very courageous man.
Just feature that, a politician that does what they're supposed to do for the American people instead of some party. I don't know what kind of parties they throw, but ours are better.
I know this isn't our Champagne Sunday show, but if I had champagne, I'd be raising a glass to him now. That is awesome.
Yeah, he needs to come back.
I know, I love it.
I could give him a list of people to talk to.
I know, but it's cool, and it's so cool to have places where people can go and remember the actions people take out of courage, not being popular all the time and making a stand. And I think it goes well with this kind of creative community because the arts, it's all about not doing the same thing as everybody else and not being not being a factory in what you write or do, and that's art. And so I think that is awesome.
I wonder if they ever shut down the government back then.
I know. No, there was a shutdown years and years and years ago. There was, but anyway, at least that's passed. But the university, I wanted to go there because I think universities, majority of them have such cool architecture and gardens.
Yes.
And I'd love to have it's like the heartbeat of a region because of the youth coming in and learning. You know, no matter what age you are, if you're learning, you're young. You know.
Yes, and you know what? It's a cultural place, and you know the university there brings a lot to the community in terms of all the culture that is there, but also the history itself. You know, the school dates back to I think the chartering of in 1844. And then, they started with 80 students. Today it's over 20,000. It's this beautiful, southern picture pretty campus with these grand buildings, like the Lyceum, which dates back to 1848, was the only survivor of these 5 original structures there. It's this Greek Revival, gorgeous building. Then there's what I've learned about was the Grove. And, most universities of sizes that, have football programs, tailgating is quite popular and very important. But Ole Miss takes it to the extreme end in the fact that they, it's tailgating at a higher level. It's not. I remember tailgating when I went to University of Illinois and University of Wisconsin, and it would be out in the parking lot, and you'd be just like sitting with some kind of keg of beer or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. Well, the Grove is this 11-acre tailgate area that's just incredibly it's a beautiful camp in the campus, and everybody gathers there, and there's tents, and it's there's chandeliers, and there's all this stuff, and they all the players kind of run through there, and so it's a big deal because, as you know, football in the South is huge. It's like a religion down there, and so particularly at Ole Miss, the Manning name of Archie, the patriarch, who was the captain of the football team there. Eli Manning, his son, played for Ole Miss. Peyton did not. I believe he played for UT. But there is a Manning a way or a street that's named after Manning, and the Manning name in town is very hallowed.
See, there you go. And,
then how come one of them didn't do? You said Peyton didn't play there?
Yeah, Peyton went to UT, and I'm not sure the reasonings behind that. But when I was asking about the Peyton name, they said, well, Archie and Eli played for Ole Miss. The Mannings are, I guess, very generous to the community, and you see a lot of Manning name marks around. But also the campus has an incredible university museum, which is home to these incredible collections in this what I consider jewel of a museum. There's one of the largest, if not the largest, Greek and Roman antiquity collection in the South that's there. And then there's these really interesting 19th century scientific instruments, and then there's American art. And I was really fascinated to see in American art, which is 20th century masters, they had a Georgia O'Keeffe there, and being, living in Santa Fe, I was like, oh my gosh, it's a Georgia O'Keeffe, And
she traveled.
So I was really impressed. Yes. Well, her work traveled, so, but anyway, and they have quite a collection there, and it's a lovely, lovely museum, and I was quite impressed with it. I did not expect something with such collections to be there, but it was wonderful.
Well, it's amazing because, too, I know that they're known as the cultural Mecca of the South, and I love that. And it's like they're the Mecca of the South, and they're at the top of the state. They're like, here we are. But what's interesting, too, is like they seem to have all these events like art walks or art crawls over there, and they've got a pop-up Oxford, and that's in late January, you say? That's a...
Yes. In fact, I was there with Pop-Up Oxford, and it's held late January, and it's this week-long series of events. It's almost like Chautauqua Festival with, music, literary, artistic, cultural, dance, lectures, signings by authors, songwriter concerts, performances, musicals. You know, that every day in the evenings and different times there's these events. You know, for example, there's like a hotel hop, which I also I participated in, where they took you around and once again in those double-decker buses, and you know, you could check out the different accommodations in town, which I thought was a great idea, not only for visitors, but for locals who say, you know, well, if I have a bunch of visitors coming, where can they stay if I can't fit them in my house? And so it was a great idea to see these wonderful accommodations that are all equally wonderful, but very different and unique in their own right. And so, yeah, and then you get to sample some of the food that they, you know, have in their restaurants. And so it was a great way for people to kind of spend the evening and go around and look at all these places.
Neat. And so they've got an art walk, everyone. And the other thing, too, you're talking about lodging. You stayed at the Graduate. And, you know, I know that's because it's a university town, but my mind went to the movie, immediately. So that seemed like a fun place because you've got a rooftop bar, yay, and music and good stuff.
Yes, and it's a great place, and actually there are graduates in a number of different, not quite, I don't know how many towns exactly, but there are a number of university towns that have this graduate hotel, and so they're around the country in various university towns, and they are each different because they reflect kind of the university and the atmosphere in which they're at, which is wonderful. So in the Graduate, the room, all of the rooms have these silhouettes of Archie and Olivia Manning, so that's pretty funny. And the place has got this wonderful pink oak, laid in pink oak when you walk in the lobby, and there's lots of colorful artwork on the walls, and there's polka dot carpeting, and then the rooftop bar is this really fun place for locals and visitors, and people wanting to watch a game, look at the town out on the rooftop deck. There's live music. Very friendly. People are very friendly. So, yeah, I love staying there, and it's just a few blocks from the square, very easy to walk around. That whole town is very easy. It's a very walkable, I think, user, pedestrian-friendly type of town.
That's nice.
Cool.
I love that. Now, let's talk about the food, because I know you've been hanging out in the South this year quite a bit, and good thing you get all that walking, and just like what we were talking about last week on St. Augustine. But you apparently started your day at Big Bad Breakfast, which already sounds like you got the triple B going on. When you started off with, here is a big Southern breakfast that's going to take you, so it's going to help you walk the town. This was a biggie.
Well, you know what? They have these wonderful skillet scrambles that they do, and then they have, wonderful, of course, in the South, biscuits are amazing, But, they had house cured, supposedly this Tabasco brown sugar type of bacon that they actually make, and it's, and then of course the bruleed grapefruit, which I love. You know what creme brulee is? It's kind of the burnt sugar kind of thing. So they do that with a grapefruit, and it is oh my gosh, it's so good. So you can, start your day with a nice hearty Southern breakfast, which will last and give you some good energy to walk around, and or you can go over and just get these wonderful pastries over at Bottle Tree Bakery, which is this very well-known place that's been around for quite some time, and then you can walk around, and then if you get hungry in a couple hours, which you normally will, even after a Southern hearty breakfast, you can tempt your taste buds at a variety of places for lunch, and you can get anything from this wonderful Italian cooking to pub food to anything that you want, fresh salads. There's a man there that has a restaurant, kind of a dynasty. He owns four restaurants in town. One is Big Bad Breakfast, another is Brulee, and then Bourrée, and the other two are wonderful Snack Bar and City Grocery, which I ate at for dinner, and they were excellent with some wonderful dishes, some inventive, innovative type of cuisine.
So this was John Currens, and he's James Beard award-winning, award-winning chef and restaurateur. So that's pretty cool. I also want to check out Proud Larry's when we're there because number one, it's pizza, and today is National Pizza Day, so go to Larry's. But and it's Friday night, and this is your music venue, and I mean you can't have writers and artists without music. It just and especially in a university town. But man, Warren Zevon hung out there and performed. That to me is like a John Mayer and Elvis Costello. Like I mean, Warren Zevon. I would have killed to have seen him. I mean that sounds terrible, but I really would have loved to have seen him perform live. That is just cool.
It is a great place. It's a and I asked one of the guys there, and I was saying, well, so why do you get these notable acts here? And he said, well, we're on this wonderful music road with Memphis and everything, and so a lot of the acts are coming through, and so they're oftentimes very willing to do another extra night as long as they're coming through there, and especially in a university town with 20,000 students, and so they'll get some fairly good names. I was very impressed with the names there, and so it's great. It's got it's very atmospheric in my mind.
I love how central it is, and I mean you could go to Graceland the next day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just saying, Nancy. We haven't done that yet. Do you think Elvis went down there and performed there, like in
good
Oxford?
question.
Who knows?
Good question.
Back then, So, wow. So a lot of history, a lot of notables. Everyone, again, the website is visitoxfordms.com. So now, is Georgia next? I got to keep up with these adventures.
Yes, it is. This is my last for the current period of time, but since I've done so much south, this is my last southern one for a while. I'm going to St. Simon Island off the coast in Georgia there, and I'm going to enjoy that area by the beach. I hear that there's some history, a wonderful lighthouse there. I think we're doing an eco tour, and so I'm excited to be by the beach. I really enjoy being by water and living in landlocked New Mexico here. So it's nice when I can get out to these places right on the beach there. So so I'm excited about that. But my tour of the South, I definitely will come back because it is just, there's so much to write about in the South. It's just extensive. I could spend, weeks and months and, years probably traveling around and finding wonderful, wonderful stories about these sometimes off the beaten path destinations.
Yeah, I know. We're excited to go through it this year too, and get back out there. And see some swampy, watery stuff too, because we need water. I know, and the desert right now is going, please give us some rain. It would be really nice. Thank you very much. So when you get to see water, you get excited. And then everybody, again, if you go to nationalparktraveling.com, you'll be able to read Debbie's article all about Oxford, Mississippi, and you'll see it in the April-May issue of Parks and Travel magazine. Again, if you go to blendradioandtv.com, you'll see her expert page there, and you can connect to her other articles on Big Blend. But listen, happy travels, and of course, I have music for you today.
Thank you. Great.
Shocking. But your song today is called Surf the Mississippi.
There you go.
Ooh.
From Los Angeles-based Tall Men group, our six tall men who have and I thought it was appropriate because they're all prolific songwriters and have performed and played with everybody pretty much. And
wonderful.
This is their songwriting challenge. Every month they get together and they pick a theme, and they each have to write a song about it. And then they get together once a month and have dinner. Chef Jimmy Yessian, one of the songwriters, makes dinner for them, and then they record an album once a year. So this is off of their second album. It's called Too Tall, and this is called Surf the Mississippi. Excuse me, not Too Tall. It's off of Feast, the album Feast, their latest one, their third album. You can hear their interview on blendradioandtv.com. But Surf the Mississippi, and I thought it went well because of the writing challenge, and it, Oxford being a writer's town. So
fabulous. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. You take care and have a great weekend, and happy travels in Georgia.
Watch out for those.
You too. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Everyone, here it is, Surf the Mississippi.
ain't got no gidgets here, just Southern bells and Dixie beers. Standing in his cotton field, north of Bourbon, south of Beale, waiting till the levee breaks, gonna catch you away with the gators and snakes. And we'll surf the Mississippi. Yeah, yeah, we'll surf the Mississippi. Sunny Sano, all we got is an old bayou. Our Woody is a pickup truck. Just grab your stick, we'll pick you up, and we'll surf the Mississippi. The Mississippi. You know California, well it's mighty fine, 'cause you ain't lived till you surf the muddy water below the Willie-Dixon line. Trip to head dip in the Mississippi. You might say it ain't your scene till you jazz the glass down to New Orleans, and we'll surf the Mississippi. Mississippi, yeah, yeah, we'll surf the Mississippi.